we have a special interview with award-winning film director Alejandro Monteverde, who directed the film Sound of Freedom, which was based on a true story of a government agent who rescued a boy from child traffickers. He soon learned the boy's sister is still captive and decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. With time running out, he quits his job and journeys deep into the Colombian jungle, putting his life on the line to free her from the fate worse than death. Most recently, film director Alejandro Monteverde directed the film entitled Cabrini, which is about an Italian immigrant called Francesca Cabrini, who arrived in New York City in 1889. Cabrini was greeted by disease, crime, and impoverished children. She soon sets off on a daring mission to convince the mayor to secure housing and healthcare for society's most vulnerable. With broken English and poor health, Cabrini uses her entrepreneurial mind to build an empire of hope unlike anything the world has ever seen, with orphanages, hospitals, and much, much more. Joining us now to give us an insight into the film career of directing such films, creating such awareness and inspiration, we are now joined by award-winning film director Alejandro Monteverde, who I would like to congratulate for directing one of the most inspirational films I have ever seen in Cabrini. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. What a great compliment. So thank you very much.
Alejandro, where did you first hear about this story of Cabrini and what were your initial reactions to it?
Well, I was shocked that I didn't know who she was. I've never heard of her before. First time I heard from her was when I read the screenplay. And that's when I knew I had to come on board. I always said, there's most of the projects I work on them from conception. This one, I was a guest, and I'm honored that I was invited to participate in this beautiful story. Her life shine a light into the world. So just like right now, the sun is coming out. I wanted to shine a light into her life through the power of cinema.
Alejandro, it's incredible obstacles that Cabrini experienced, but she still didn't give up as she continued to persevere. How important is it that we can give a message to the world today where so many people are finding difficulties in their own lives, but are seeing so much inspirational stories from people like Francesca Cabrini?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things you said it, you said that it was one of the most inspirational films you've seen. And that's kind of like the reaction that we've been receiving. It's people said, you must see this film. You must see this film. And I asked him, why? Why is it that they are, pushing this movie for other people to see it? Because they want to have, that experience of hope in many ways. We can lose hope very easy. And I invite everybody to come see this film because this is what people are saying, is that they get filled with hope to keep fighting whatever fight they have in their lives,
Alejandro, in your opinion, why is it important that we are pushing this message of hope, especially as people are experiencing fights in their own personal lives? And sometimes you need to see other people's inspirational journeys to give yourself some sort of hope as well. Do you think that the world today is hopeless, and why do we need to give hope to people right now?
Well, we live in a very divided world right now. You see what's going on around. We're going through two very major wars around the world. Every country is very divided politically, and politics, unfortunately, divides families and friendships and so on. And this film, in many ways, inspires to build bridges, to focus on things that we do agree. Her character, she was a warrior, and she was able to build bridges with people she disagree with in order for the good of others. And we'll be amazed how much we agree with each other. We're just focusing too much on what we disagree. And this is a movie that invites us to have a more friendly dialogue and to keep fighting. I mean, in many ways, we are all warriors, because life it can throw you some some hard, hard rocks at you, and we have to learn how to, I think we all at one point gonna get hit really hard, and it was just this movie kind of explores, the path of how to get up and get back in the horse, and she was a constant, she was in constant fight, especially with her own mortality. They always told her that she had just a few years to live, and she was able to squeeze or to steal, many decades out of that.
The film Cabrini is based in the 19th century, but can you see in any way that things have moved on, things have changed, or do you think people are still experiencing similar sort of struggles today?
Oh no, I think we have definitely evolved in a good path. I would say. I mean, and at least in this country, definitely not. I'm sure this kind of issues are going on exactly how it's in the movie in many other countries, but here in the U.S., she says one day there's going to be some days someone sitting in this office and he won't be cleaning it, and that happened already. We have had Italian governors, Italian uh, um, mayors, and so on. So it has changed, dramatically. And yes, I think immigration, it's always going to be a very complex subject worldwide. But it's definitely, I'm an immigrant myself. I came to this country with nothing, and I was able to get an education and to fulfill one of my dreams, which is to make movies. So I think it also shows the power of this country, the film.
Alejandro, there was a very interesting line in the film for me that personally stood out, and it was, "We can serve our weakness or we can serve our purpose." That's a very powerful statement. What does this particular statement mean to you personally?
Well, it means a lot. That's one of the lines that, it grabbed me to want to make this movie. I wake up every day with a purpose and with many weaknesses, and you gotta choose which one to serve on a daily basis. So that line spoke very, very strongly to me, and I think that kind of pushed me to keep wanting to know more about her, because I read that line, I think, on page 10, and I was like, all right, she speaks with profound wisdom, because that's something we all as human beings go through. And I have not met anybody that does not have a weakness. So that's the constant human battle, I would say.
Like you said, I think a lot of people who are watching may be experiencing difficulties in their own life, but I want to ask you a question now, Alejandro, is if you can give our viewers an example of a difficulty or an obstacle that you personally experienced in your own personal life, can you tell us how you were able to overcome it?
Yeah, of course. I think my whole life I experienced that. Every day I have two paths. And it's a constant. I say life is a choice. It's a collection of choices that we make, and some choices can land you into a very dark place, and some choices, can land you into more, um, joyful places. And it depends. It's we don't choose. There's a line in the film too, is we don't choose how we come into this life, but we get to choose how we live in it. And I understand, there's some people that were born in very, very difficult situations with very limited choices, and some people that were born with a lot of, many ways privileges and so on, and we don't get to pick that. That's unfortunately, it's something you don't get to choose how do you come into this world, but we do get to choose what we do once we're here, and that's a constant question. If I can speak for myself, and it's a constant. There's some. Every day I do good choices, and every day I do really bad choices, and it's life. And she's a character that was in a constant choice, but she had a very strong conviction to just keep going and not give up. And that's another choice. We can give up anytime, any second, any day, you know.
Alejandro, I think that is so true, that what you just shared with our viewers as well. I think as human beings, we can always have challenges, but we don't know the direction to take. But personally, me being a Christian, I leave my entire life in God's hands, and I leave him to guide the path as well. And I think that helps to remove some of the pressures and also some of the stresses that we may be experiencing. I also think that I'm thinking about media or even social media today, Alejandro, and sometimes we can look at other people, what people are doing in this world today, and we can compare ourselves as well to the way that others are doing things. But I think we can just take a step back and realize, okay, someone maybe has a plan for our own life and I'm going to go along with his journey. And that's the way maybe we can remove some of the anxiety, some of the fear, and not to overthink things that is so important, don't you think?
Yes, yes, for sure. For sure. And, you know, in many ways, I do think, you know, her life as a whole could be considered as a prayer, you know, her actions, everything, the way she just lived her entire life just for others. You know, she built, you know, her ambition was, in order to build the empire that she built. I mean, she built an empire as big as any Rockefeller or Vanderbilt at that time. It was an international empire. But her empire was for others, for the good of others. And that in itself, you know, it can help us to kind of, you know, look into our lives and just see how egotistic sometimes. And I always like to speak about me. You know, it's like I can. This movie also helped me to see, you know, how how much I complain, how much I think about myself first instead of thinking about others first. And you know, is how I can, you know, and somehow grow and see how I can, you know, serve others and so on. So I that's why I thought it was important to make a movie about her life, because we do live in a world that it's designed to think about, and it's teaching us to think about us first. First me, and then me. And it's hard to kind of, you know, we think our opinion and we think we're too important, and that's a problem. You know, I think it's when we start thinking as we. That's, you know, we are a family. You know, we're the human race, and I think it's that's not very popular nowadays. You know, and I do think that her life kind of invites us to create dialogues. And again, I don't believe in a world that we should all agree. I do think disagreements, that's great. I support that. But I don't think we should be divided. We can agree to disagree, and we can really get to have meaningful conversations and respect the other people's opinions. And I don't make movies to try to change people's opinions. I like to make movies that proposes a theme, a question, and let's talk about it, and let's take it from there.
Alejandro, also want to say a big congratulations to directing the film Sound of Freedom, which was an incredible film which drew a lot of great light and awareness into the world of human trafficking, which people like myself didn't even know existed too much. So what did the Sound of Freedom mean to you when you first heard about it?
It was the same thing, you know, it was a theme that I was not familiar with. And I wanted to make a movie to, you know, the intention was very pure. It's like, you know, we as a society, as an international society, we should be talking about this subject matter. And I myself wanted to know if it was true. I was like, is this happening or not? And that's why I wanted to make a movie about it. And unfortunately, it got a little bit politicized, but that was not the purpose. The purpose was to create a conversation, and that's kind of, you know, at the end, I think that was achieved. You know, the conversation began, and it began with the wrong foot, but I believe the conversation goes on, and it's a good conversation to have.
Alejandro, I think The Sound of Freedom brought so much awareness to an audience in the world that didn't even know existed. So what did it take for you to direct this film? Can you give us an insight into maybe the amounts of research that it took for you to know about this film, to find out more about this particular topic? Did you have to go certain places, visit certain areas as well? What was that experience like for you personally?
Yeah, there was a lot of research and talking to a lot of people from law enforcement, people that worked on that field. Um, reading a lot of different researchers done by other people, and trying to figure out what was what was the root of the problem. And I realized it was way too dark for me to make a movie about that. So I kind of literally wanted to just make a movie about the tip of the iceberg and let the world take it from there. I am not an expert on the subject matter. In the beginning, I was just making a fiction, so we can talk about it. And then throughout the research, that's how I met the main character of the film, and that's when I switched it to be more, inspired or based on a true story. So it was a journey.
Alejandro, can you give our viewers an insight into the power of storytelling and also making these kind of films, how it brings awareness in films such as The Sound of Freedom and inspirational films like Cabrini? From your perspective, tell our viewers about the power of storytelling.
Well, I can tell you from my own experience, I think it's something personal that happens to each person in the audience. Films have the power to kind of have you change a little bit. For me, there was one movie that I watched when I was in film school, Schindler's List, and I remember that movie began for me when I left the theater. That's when I started kind of, having very existential questions about my life. I'm like, wow. That's when I realized I was just living my life for me. I was like, I wasn't doing anything for the good of others. I was just thinking, and the life of Schindler. There was one part in the film. He already has saved over 10,000 souls, and here he is still, you know, heartbroken that he could have saved one more if he would have sold his car or something else. So it invited me to question, and I saw the impact that movie had on me, and I was like, those are the kind of movies I want to make. And I will never know the impact that the films have on my audience until the audience starts sharing their stories. And I have heard some powerful stories throughout my career from different audiences of how, any of given movie that I've made have had that kind of, awakening per se in their lives. So, but at the end, I just love the power of cinema, and I like to make, movies that I hope I continue to have the chance to keep making them.
Alejandro, where did this passion for filmmaking begin? How did you get involved in film industry? Did it start from a very young age? Where did it all begin for you?
For me, we began since I was a little kid, but I didn't know it was movies. I just knew I liked to tell stories. I'd be playing a lot with my toys and create these stories, emotional journeys, I would say. And then when I got older, I saw a film set, and I realized that they were doing the same thing that I was doing, but instead with little toys, they were using actors and cameras. So I kind of saw it as it felt very familiar. I was like, wow, they're doing the same thing. I was using toys, they're using you know another form of expression that is more powerful than me pulling two toys together. So it was like I felt that was a path that I wanted to follow. And you can tell stories in many different ways, through paintings, through music, through books. It's films is just another format. And I just love it, and I want to continue to do it, and I hope I can.
Alejandro, can you tell our viewers, was it a straightforward process for you to get into the film industry, or did you experience some challenges and obstacles along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. I just think every there's nothing easy in life. And yeah, when I say I want to make movies, I didn't realize how hard it is to make a movie. It's I think it's if you're gonna become a painter, you can just buy a canvas. I mean, not that easy either. I don't want to say painting is easy, but making a movie requires a lot of money. It's a lot of resources, and it's a lot of things have to come together. And it's easy to say, "Oh, I want to make movies." Okay, well, it's super hard, and that's why I always, it's so easy to criticize movies, but there's so much work that goes behind of making a movie, and so much resources, and it's very, very difficult. Yeah, I think I heard one day Tom Hanks, it's like, wow, if he thinks making movies is hard, imagine how hard it is for the independent people. He said, I think, movies are miracles. It's for a movie to be made, it requires a miracle to happen. And this is Tom Hanks, who you would think it would be easier for him to just, say, okay, I want to make this movie, and it gets made. No, I think it's just very difficult for everybody. There's not an easy movie, and it's a journey. I think making a movie, it's a movie in itself in many ways. You go through the same journeys, through the same, if you break it up in a 3-act structure, there has the same drama, the same, punches and losses and falls and getting up, and same thing as a movie in itself.
Alejandro, can you tell us, what do you make out of the culture that we're living in today, and that everything is on the smartphone, and there's easy access for young people to use a mobile phone to create their own film on their own creative way as well? So how have times changed in comparison maybe to when you first started filmmaking, and the way that we have the media and film and cameras available today?
Well, I'm always going to be against it. I just think, phones are to make phone calls, or, read the news, or watch the news if you want to. But if you're going to experience a film, I still old school, watch it on the cinema, on the big screen, with no interruptions, with all the power, have an experience. And I like to make movies for the big screen. I'm not ready to make movies to be watched on the little phones, and I don't know if I can do that. I much prefer maybe to go into another art of maybe doing something else. But as of now, I encourage people to go, and it's the same thing as having a meal at a restaurant versus at your house. It's a completely different experience. It's nothing wrong with having a meal at your house, but sometimes going out into a restaurant and experiencing the lighting, if their plates are handmade, it's in the background, really just coming out and making the perfect meal for you. The music, everything is an experience. So I believe on that experience, of coming out into the movies and experiencing a film in a collective way, with hundreds of people in a theater.
I think you're so right. I think it's about the experiences of enjoying a film in a cinema and enjoying the quality of a production. So how can we inspire the younger generation today who may be watching us and watching this interview, and maybe they want to get into the film industry? What can we say to them for them to start?
Well, I think, it's anyone can say, I want to be a singer, but if you don't have a voice or something to say, it's going to be very challenging. So it's just for anybody that wants to make movies, is, why? First, ask why you want to make movies. And if the answer is because you want to tell the stories that are important to you, then find the story. And once you find the story, then you'll figure out what all the other elements need to be, brought together to make the movie. It's just the same thing as a painter. So I want to be a painter, but what is it that you want to paint? Well, what do you want to paint? Find out. And you want to paint the landscape, you're going to paint faces, you're going to be abstract, whatever it is, find what is it that you want to tell. So then that passion and that conviction will help you to find the resources, to educate yourself more about the art, I say that, be a student, don't stop being a student, don't ever say, I know enough. That's a problem, always say, I don't know enough. And I want to keep studying, and I want to keep, pushing and exploring and find your own voice, what makes you special, what kind of stories you want to tell. And, when I was a filmmaker, when I was a student, I didn't have a phone. There was no, right now, there's, you can shoot a movie on your phone. And if that's the only thing you have, then do it, hopefully you can shoot, you can shoot a 4K movie on your phone, and then you can still, figure out a way to see it on a bigger screen. But, find it's a journey, and find what's important.
Alejandro, for anyone watching today who is going through a crossroads in their own personal life and they don't know which way to turn, what would you say to them to give them a message of hope?
That's, to quiet the world and listen to, your not your ego, listen to who you really are, and try to find, something that is meaningful to you, not what is meaningful to the world. I just feel there's a lot of noise out there, and we start creating this persona we're not, and we start living our lives based on this other character. And not until we take those masks out that we think we need to survive. I just think that, the ego is the most dangerous way to live by, our egos. It's a very, but however, if you make your ego your servant, it might be the most powerful tool that we have. But if we make our egos, our mind, our masters, think about it. It can send you into a self-destruction, suicide. Think about it. Where suicide comes from. It's a little voice saying, destroy your life, kill yourself. And it's we have to dissociate, we are not our thoughts, and we're not our ego. And for me, that was a big awakening. And I wish I got earlier in life, because then I would not be listening to my mind so much and just give so much importance to the thoughts that are created in my mind. And that's something that I personally would hope that I would have known younger.
Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And I think what you say is so true. At times, we can overthink things as well in our own minds and make things bigger than they actually are. Alejandro Monteverde, award-winning film director, thank you so much for joining us on Revelation TV. A big congratulations on this film, Cabrini, but also The Sound of Freedom. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.